Hello, I'm High Heel Knight. Welcome to the channel. This is our movie review of Brahms the Boy 2. It's a 2020 supernatural thriller, and it is a sequel to The Boy, which is a 2016 psychological thriller. And I said our review because joining me for this video is my very best friend in the whole world. Please welcome back Jill O'Lantern.
Hi everybody, Jill O'Lantern here, excited to be back with High Heel Knight to discuss our opinions about Brahms the Boy 2. And boy do I have an opinion. So let's go ahead and start with that movie summary.
In Brahms the Boy 2, a family of three, husband, wife, and their young son, relocate to a home that's adjacent to the Heelshire Mansion from the first movie. They experience a major traumatic event where they lived previously, so they've just moved into this new location trying to rebuild their lives. Well, as they explore their new surroundings, they happen to come upon the Brahms doll from the first movie buried in the forest. Now, the young man, he experienced the most trauma, and he takes a liking to the doll, and the doll at first seems to be helping him rebuild his confidence and his social skills. But as time progresses, strange things are happening around the home, creepy things, disturbing things, dangerous things, and the parents are concerned that their young son is getting worse, but the young son insists that it's actually Brahms the doll that is ultimately responsible. Now, this video will be full of spoilers because the two movies, the sequel and the first, are very different from each other. My opinion of those two movies are very different from each other. Jill O'Lantern's opinions of those movies are very different from each other, so there will be spoilers. And I'm going to let Jill O'Lantern handle the lion's share of this video because I consider her a horror expert. Not only does she love horror movies, but she's worked at horror theme parks as a performer, as a manager, even as a creator-director. So when it comes to things that go bump in the night, she is my go-to gal. And with that stated, Jill O'Lantern, the floor is yours.
So I know, High Heel Knight, you always like to talk about what you enjoyed about the movie and then what you didn't enjoy about the movie. So I will talk about what I enjoyed, although it's going to be very brief. The acting was good. The acting was perfectly fine. They were believable. The only one that I knew going into the movie, the only actor that I was familiar with was Katie Holmes. And everybody was perfectly fine. There wasn't any case of cheesiness as far as the acting goes. And in general, as far as just a paranormal haunted doll ghost movie, it was fine. It was better than some that I've seen. And that's it. That's all I got. I have to talk about what I didn't enjoy about the movie because that was pretty much the whole movie. What I didn't enjoy, I was so disappointed. Reason being, The Boy, the first movie, was one of my favorite horror movies in a very long time. And I love horror movies. And I'm so tired of all this just copy cutter stuff that they keep putting out and just pandering to the masses, just cheap scares, jump scares, predictable horror. And when I saw the trailer for The Boy, I thought it looked good. It didn't look so copy cutter. It looked quality, and Lauren Cohen was in it, and I'm a huge Walking Dead fan. So that was what drew me to see the movie. But the twist at the end, unbelievable. Obviously the trailers are psyching you up to think it's a haunted doll. Throughout the whole movie, it's a haunted doll, all this stuff is happening, but it keeps getting debunked. What is happening? I challenge anyone to say that they predicted the twist at the end of that movie, because I'm normally pretty good at predicting at least a general idea of what's going to happen at the end of horror movies. I was floored. My friend and I talked about it the whole ride home. We kept just like, oh, I like the song on the radio. He was in the walls the whole time, in the walls, and we kept replaying it, and you go back and think, okay, when her dress went missing and all the different scenarios that was really Brahms. And I thought about it, 2 or 3 days, I continued to think about that movie and that twist, and nothing has gotten me like that in a long time. So I was a huge fan. When I saw they were making a sequel, so excited, right in my planner, wrote it down, don't forget. The sequel, Brahms the Boy 2, was actually supposed to come out in December, and they pushed it to February. So I have been anticipating, waiting for this movie for so long, and then it just completely, I just can't believe they changed the whole story. But thinking about it, the first one was so good, and the twist was so good and huge and just changed the whole thing. where are you going to go from there? There's really nowhere to make a sequel from there. So with this one, the only way to make a sequel was to bring in some new element of paranormal, because obviously they're not going to have Brahms traveling with the doll with his family and somehow making his way in to live into their walls. And even if they did, we as the audience already know that that's coming, so that's not really the twist. So I see why they did it, but I was so disappointed. The entire first movie was about debunking the fact that the doll was not paranormal, and once the twist happened, you went back in your mind and went, oh, I see how that worked, I see how that worked, I see how that worked. It was never the doll. And then now they're trying to make it that, oh, it was the doll the whole time and he's been haunting families for generations, and oh, it's so cheesy and predictable, and we just sold out to the masses that just wanted another haunted doll movie. So I was so disappointed. I would have walked out of the theater, except I was there with a friend and she had bought her ticket, so I didn't want to make her waste her money, and she seemed to be enjoying it. I don't think she's as big of as like just a horror nut or just as harsh on horror movies as I am. I guess I'm a pretty tough critic. I was so disappointed. It was just another ghost doll movie that we didn't need. And not only that, but now they've destroyed the whole concept of the first movie that I loved. And there's really nowhere to go from here. In the last 5 minutes, when they tried to like wrap everything up with a pretty little bow, they did explain some about the first movie, so it made me feel a little bit better about it. At the end of the first movie, we see the doll being glued back together, and we assume that it's Brahms, but then, oh, maybe somebody else had a hand in that, and then they tie that together with the groundskeeper at the end. So okay, fine. It wasn't a complete disaster, but as far as I'm concerned, looking forward to this movie. Loved the first one. This just completely destroyed that for me.
I liked this sequel much more than the first film. I do agree with a lot of the overall points that Jill Lantern presented, because yes, the two movies are vastly different, and if you like what happened in the first movie, the second movie pretty much ruins all of that. But for me, I like the sequel well because it is a supernatural event as opposed to psychological. In the first movie, the twist is great, but it implies that the parents of that film subjected themselves to decades of this obsessive rules that this kid demanded. I just couldn't believe it. Sure, maybe a year or two, but decades, because they were, what, too embarrassed or too ashamed to send the kid off to jail or a psychiatric ward? I just couldn't believe it. It broke my suspension of disbelief. Whereas in this movie, with it being supernatural powers, it makes it a lot more believable that a family would feel that they couldn't escape, or they were being controlled, or they had to cater all these obsessive whims of this doll, this creature. That makes a lot more sense than basically saying, oh, what will the neighbors think if my son goes off to jail? Oh. No, with this new movie, yes, it does change a lot of things, and Jill Lantern makes excellent points, but I liked it a lot more than the first movie, and I give this sequel movie a B- grade, but clearly Jill Lantern feels differently, and I'll let her have the last word on this film.
So, time for the verdict. As you can see, High Heel Knight and I have very different opinions about this movie, but I can say that just as a standalone paranormal haunted doll ghost movie, it was fine. The public probably really enjoyed it. People that hadn't seen the first one, because it's been such a gap between the first one and this one. The acting was fine, but for it to call itself a sequel and just to take a fantastic movie and just destroy it, I'm gonna have to give it a C-. Okay, that was our review. I hope you enjoyed it. I'm Jill Lantern. I certainly had a great time, so I want to thank High Heel Knight for inviting me. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe, or dislike, share, and subscribe to his awesome channel. And as we always say, find inspiration everywhere.